Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first verse or verses I'm going to recite are chapter 22, verses 39 and 40. زين للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير. الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيه اسم الله كثيرا ولينصرن الله من ينصره إن الله لقوي عزيز. Permission to fight is given to those on whom war is made because they are oppressed. Surely Allah is able to assist them. Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, our Lord is Allah. And if Allah did not repel some people by others, cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques in which Allah's name is much remembered would have been pulled down. And surely Allah will help him who helps Allah. Surely Allah is strong and mighty. Next one is chapter 5, verse 8. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu kunu qawwamina lillahi شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. O you who believe, be upright for Allah, bearers of witness with justice, and let not hatred of a people incite you not to act equitably. Be just, that is, nearer to observance of duty, and keep your duty to Allah. Surely Allah is aware of what you do. And then 1733. ولا تقتلوا النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ومن قتل مظلوما فقد جعلنا لوليه سلطانا فلا يسرف في القتل إنه كان منصورا. And kill not the soul which Allah has forbidden except for a just cause. And whoever is slain unjustly, we have indeed given to his heir authority, but let him not exceed the limit in slaying. Surely he will be helped. And the last verse is chapter 8, verse 61. وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. And if they incline to peace, you should also incline to peace and trust in Allah. Surely He is the hearer, the knower. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. I have recited these verses mainly because this Sunday is Remembrance Sunday. That is, to remember those who have fallen in the First World War, fighting for the Allies. And that meant the British and the French and so on. And much of this history, as far as Muslims are concerned, has been forgotten. It's interesting that Ahmadis are accused of being British agents by non-Ahmadis. But I want to share with you the services of non-Ahmadi Muslims for the cause of the British Empire. Now, those who helped the British, there were 400,000 Indians in the British Indian Army. Of course, not all of them were Muslims, but many were. There were 200,000 Algerians, most of them Muslims. 100,000 Tunisians, most of them Muslims. 40,000 Moroccans, most of them Muslims. 100,000 West Africans. 5,000 Somalis. And there were Somalis and Libyans who were a part of the French army. Interestingly, I learned that 5,000 soldiers in the American army which came to fight in Britain were Muslims. And there were 1.3 million Russian Muslims. They were all fighting for the British, the French, and the Russians. In fact, this excludes the fact that the Saudi Muslims rose up. These are the ones who were directly a part of the armed forces of these countries. Saudis also rose up in rebellion against Turkey, and they were led and guided by British officers. We all know about General Allenby and Colonel Lawrence, who led them, and they attacked the Turks and defeated them. In addition to these soldiers, there were people who provide support services. A lot of them were laborers. 100,000 of them were Egyptians. 350,000 of them were Chinese Muslims. 130,000 of them were North Africans. So, they were mostly Muslims, but probably Christian and so on as well. 200,000 were sub-Saharan Africans, again, mostly Muslims, and 40,000 Indians, a substantial part of which would have been Muslims. And if you add it all up, you come to the fact that at least 4 million Muslim soldiers and laborers from all over the world fought for the British and the French. And many of them, or most of them, fought with great dignity and great honor. And they were, when it came to awarding medals for bravery, they were more decorated than their counterparts. If you go to France, you find the cemetery there, which is dedicated to the soldiers who fell fighting for France. You find 576 Muslim soldiers buried there. How do we know they're Muslims? Because of their graves that with the face turned towards Mecca. And this is at Notre Dame de l'Ordre, which is one of France's biggest war cemeteries. And each one is inscribed with the words, "I died for France." And these were actually designed by a French person who in 1908 had embraced Islam. All this has been forgotten not only in Britain, but also in France and Belgium and other countries which Muslims helped liberate. There is a Belgian gentleman, Loc Fourier, and he has set up a foundation called Forgotten Heroes. And they are trying to show the sacrifices that Muslims made for France and Belgium and I guess EU these days. And he gave an interview to a paper called The National, in which he said that he's convinced that without Muslim troops and Muslim laborers, the Allies would have lost the First World War. And raising public awareness of their contribution could help counter anti-Islamic sentiment in Europe and give immigrant communities a stronger sense of belonging. Now, you see, those people who went at that time, those Muslims who went to fight for the British and the French and so on, they appear to be better educated about Islam than Muslims today, which is very interesting, because you find in diaries and reports of the French and British officers that they were astounded that the way the Muslim soldiers handled the German prisoners of war, they treated them with respect and dignity. Muslims made sure that these non-Muslim soldiers that they'd taken as prisoners of war were properly fed and that they were safe. Even though they knew that the Muslims being captured by the Germans were being tortured and starved and humiliated, even though they knew that the Germans were dropping chemical weapons and engaging in poisonous gas warfare. And these British and the French officers were taken aback by the way Muslims were treating the prisoners of war. And they asked them, why were they showing this courtesy towards German prisoners? In response, Muslims referred to the Holy Quran and the Hadith, saying our religion treats us that when we take prisoners in war, we must treat them with dignity and respect. And we must make sure that they are properly fed. And Islam forbids us to make prisoners of war beg us for food. Not only that, at the time, because of the fighting that was going on, food was in short supply. It wasn't just the soldiers. Soldiers were fed first. And the local populations of those areas were suffering. Soldiers were fed first because they had to fight. They needed strength and energy and so on. And yet, what were the Muslim soldiers doing? They were sharing their rations with local people who were starved. And the officers ordered Muslims not to do this because it will weaken them and it will make it difficult for them to fight. So what did Muslims do? They ignored those orders. They said, no, these people deserve food more than we do. And this is in line with the teaching of the Holy Quran and Hadith. But the sad thing was this, that the wounded, when they were brought to Britain for treatment, I mean, some obviously died on the battlefield or recovered on the battlefield, but the more serious wounded were sent back to hospitals in the United Kingdom. But when they died, no one had any idea what to do with them. They couldn't even distinguish between Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims. And it was the Lahori Ahmadis who worked from the working mosque at the time. Their Imam, Hazrat Maulana Sadruddin Sahib, who heard about this plight of the Indian soldiers. And he created so much fuss that he was given the honorary title by the British of that troublesome Imam. And he made sure that a plot was granted. This was at Hosel Common in Woking for proper burial of the Muslim soldiers who died. So it was the Lahori Ahmadis who would take the body, who would wash the body, who would cloak the body in the burial garment, who would make sure that the grave was pointing in the right direction, and who would say the funeral prayers of these non-Ahmadi soldiers. And they buried them. But not only that, Maulana Sadruddin also made sure that so far as he could, because obviously he was a Muslim, but because India was united at the time and Muslims observed how Hindus and Sikhs, what their funeral rituals were. So as far as he could, he made sure that the Hindus and Sikhs were buried after proper burial rituals according to their religion. The Muslim world will do well to remember that when they were fighting for what? To curry favor with the mighty British Empire. One lonely Lahori Ahmadi sitting in Woking was fighting with this British Empire to make sure that all Muslims are buried with dignity and respect, and the correct religious rituals are followed in their burial. And he did this with Sikhs, and he did this for Hindus as well. None of them were Lahori Ahmadis. None of them were members of our Jamaat. Hosal Common now has been renovated as the Muslim Peace Gardens or something like that. And there used to be a ceremony there every year to commemorate the First World War and so on. There is a poem that is often read out and recited about these people who laid down their lives. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years contempt. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. They went with songs to the battle. They were young, straight of limb, true of eye, steady and aglow. They were staunch to the end against odds uncounted. They fell with their faces to the foe. So when we say we will remember them, I thought it was only right that I mention the Muslims who died in the First World War fighting for the British and who've been almost forgotten. And it is only now that with the struggle of some historians and researchers that their memory has been revived. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barraufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ وَاخْذُلْ مَنْ خَذَلَ دِينَ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa lazikrullahi akbar. Wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamatis salah, qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Alam tara kaifa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Alam yaj'al kaidahum fi tadlil. Wa arsala alaihim tayran ababil. Tarmihim bihijaratin min sijil. Faja'alahum ka'asfun ma'kul. Allahu Akbar. Sami'allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Li'ilafi Quraish ilafihim rihlatash shita'i was-sayf. Qul ya'budu rabba hadzal bait الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Thank you for joining us for our Friday service today. Our next broadcast is tomorrow at 1400 hours UK time, and it's on Pure Discussion, which is a WhatsApp group. And on that, our broadcast is going to be about Islam and Diwali. Then on Monday, inshallah, we'll get back to our normal broadcasting schedule. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 o'clock it will be Tadabbarul Quran, and at 7:40 reflections in the Holy Quran. I hope you will join us until we meet again, with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, may Allah keep the whole of humanity safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.